Subscribe to Mantold for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. I was doing the dishes, like every other night. Except tonight, I just bought the company where my wife works. She doesn't know. All she knows is she threw the divorce papers in my face and coldly said, "From now on, you stay home and wash the dishes." I'm done carrying dead weight. I didn't react. No yelling. No anger. I just took off my wedding ring, put it in the drawer by the sink, and went back to scrubbing the plates, like it was the last thing I'd ever do for this marriage. The water kept running. Her heels clicked on the wooden floor, then disappeared upstairs. The house went quiet. I stood there, hands cold and wet, staring at the spotless dishes like they knew more than anyone else in this house. 12 years together, and it ended with an order, like I was the help. She thinks I'm unemployed. She thinks I'm useless. She thinks I'm just another man left behind by the world. But what she doesn't know is that 6 hours ago, I signed a deal to sell my voice recognition tech to a global corporation for $112 million. She also doesn't know the investment fund that just acquired 51% of the fashion company she works for is mine. I don't need her to love me again. I don't need an apology. All I need is silence. And a rainy night like this to write the first chapter of a brand new life. She went to bed with a divorce plan in her head. And me? I drove to the office, where a vault holds the $112 million contract, stamped in red like blood. I turned on the desk lamp, opened my laptop, and logged into the new executive system, where my name now sits as the majority shareholder. I sat down, opened a file marked Urgent. Title, Restructuring Plan, starting with the marketing department where my wife works. She thinks she just left a loser, but in reality, she walked away from the only man who stayed silent so he could rebuild an entire world. My name is Cody Palmer. I'm 38. I used to be the lead engineer at a voice tech startup, the same tech that later turned into that $112 million deal. I'm not the flashy type. I don't do bars. I don't do parties. I love peace. I love code. I love my kid. And I used to love my wife with every ounce of patience a man could give. I met Amber 13 years ago at a tech fair in Austin. She wasn't a tech girl. She was there for her best friend's sustainable fashion booth. I was right next to it, showing off an old phone mic I'd hacked into a sound sensor. The first time she saw me, I was hunched over, soldering a chip with tweezers, sweat on my forehead, wrinkled t-shirt, dark circles under my eyes. And she still smiled. She smiled and said something I've never forgotten. "You look like you just woke up from a really long dream, and you're not ready to let go." I fell for her right then. No sparks, no drama, just deep. Amber was working for an up-and-coming lingerie brand back then. Smart, stylish, confident. So much so that I always felt like I had to try harder just to be enough. And I did. I worked day and night, went from a freelance coder to co-founder of a machine learning platform, and turned our little startup into a real company. We got married 2 years later. A simple outdoor wedding, just close friends. She didn't ask for an expensive dress. She didn't ask me to change cars or buy a new house. Back then, Amber said something that still hits me to this day. I don't need a rich man. I need someone who'll walk with me, even when the road gets rough. Sounds like a fairy tale, right? But real life's different. The road doesn't just get rough, it changes direction. The first year after the wedding, we lived in a tiny rental, 2 bedrooms, walls so thin you could hear the neighbors fight at midnight. Amber used to lie on the floor, legs propped up on the sofa, laughing and saying, "When we're rich, promise me no velvet carpets. I just want cold wooden floors and natural light." I'd laugh, nod like some fool in love for the first time. Then our first kid was born. I got an offer from a big tech firm in Seattle. Senior engineer, double the pay. But Amber didn't want to move. She worried about uprooting our daughter, didn't want to be far from her mom. So I turned it down, just to keep waking up early, making pancakes for my kid, and brewing coffee for my wife before she left the house. I started working remote. I thought, I'm a man. Stepping back for the family isn't something to be ashamed of. I was still coding, still building, still earning, just quietly. No one saw. No one praised it. One night at dinner, my mother-in-law said straight up, "Amber is the most successful person in this family. And you're the only man I've seen who goes to work and still picks up his kid every afternoon." I just smiled. Smiled because I didn't want to ruin dinner. Amber didn't defend me. She just changed the subject, like the words weren't worth reacting to. Little by little, I started to realize people don't value what they can't see. She was still beautiful, still sharp, but her smiles were now for cameras, colleagues, and strategy meetings. For me, just reminders about trash that needed taking out, food our kid wouldn't eat, or laundry that needed to be redone. I remember one afternoon, our daughter asked me, "Dad, why does Mom call you dead weight all the time?" I didn't know what to say. I just held her tight, and for the first time, I was scared of my own silence. I thought I was preserving something, but in truth, I was erasing myself from the story. And once I nearly disappeared, she started living a story where I no longer existed. I started sensing something was off. Not from the messages, not from that guy, Finn, but from Amber's eyes. She didn't look at me the same way anymore. Not cold, not distant. Just like someone living in a different world who happened to pass by me each day. One time, I placed my hand on her shoulder while she was cooking, a small habit that used to make her smile. But this time, she flinched like I'd shocked her, then said, "Don't touch me like that out of nowhere, okay?" I stepped back, silent, and for the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in the very kitchen I once designed with her in mind. It was a Saturday. Amber wore a white silk dress, sprayed on a new perfume, one I'd never seen on her dresser. Said she was going for coffee with her best friend. But her makeup was flawless, every line perfectly drawn. I said nothing, but our daughter wasn't shy about the truth. While coloring, she chirped, "Last night, Mommy had dinner with Uncle Finn. He laughed a lot. Mommy laughed a lot too." I stood there, coffee in hand, untouched. Finn. That name rang a bell from Amber's year-end company party. He was the CFO, loud, charming, the type who knew exactly how to make women feel seen. Back then, I brushed it off. Maybe our kid got it wrong. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. But then, the little details started lining up. Like pieces of a puzzle I never asked to play. She often turned her back to me in bed, put her phone face down on the table, took more and more urgent business trips, but somehow always forgot her laptop. One day, she left her phone on the kitchen counter. It lit up with a message. "Last night was amazing. You should wear white more often." Finn. I didn't smash the phone. I just took a screenshot, locked it, and put it back like I hadn't seen anything. I'm a coder. I don't fight with fists. I fight with data. I started checking bank statements. A few red flags. A boutique hotel stay midweek, labeled team building. 2 jazz concert tickets, even though she said she was at a marketing seminar. I didn't confront her. I hired a private investigator, someone I knew from a cybersecurity startup. 10 days later, a tiny hard drive arrived in a gift box. I opened it in my car, parked right outside our house. Photos, Amber and Finn at a bar, his hand on her shoulder, their faces too close to be just friends. Photos, Finn opening a car door, Amber smiling, stepping into a strange apartment. Video, she leans in, whispers something to him, then laughs. The kind of laugh I used to think was mine. I watched everything. Once, no fast forward, no skipping. My hands trembled, not from shock, but from holding in a sadness, too heavy to carry all at once. I remembered a night, 4 months ago. Amber came home late. I asked, "You okay?" She nodded, headed straight to the shower. I stayed in the kitchen, made egg noodles, her favorite. She came out around 11 p.m. Hair wet, robe on, and said, "I'm tired. Don't hug me. I just need sleep." I believed her, and because I loved her, I didn't ask more. But looking back now, I see it clearly. I didn't lose Amber in a single night. I lost her, little by little, every turn back in bed, every glance that looked past me, and the part that hurt most wasn't that she betrayed me, it was that I still loved her, even knowing she wasn't the woman I married anymore. That night, I didn't go inside right away. I stayed in the car, watching the warm yellow porch light spill over the bricks. It used to feel peaceful, but now, that light made my chest tighten. Not because it was dim, but because the woman I loved most was inside that house, living a life I no longer belonged to. I opened my phone, texted a name I hadn't contacted in years. Morris Legal and Finance. Urgent. Set up an offshore company. Secure account to extract capital from marital funds. Morris called back in 3 minutes. You sure about this, Cody? I looked up at the bedroom window, the curtain gently shifting, then said, she's living with someone else, while using my money to date him. I think it's time to stop. I didn't strike back. I rebuilt in silence. I started freezing joint investments, quietly pulled shares from my original company, through shell firms in Ireland and Canada, delegated contract signings to my assistant, restructured my entire portfolio. Amber had no idea. She still thought I was the stay-at-home kitchen guy. What she didn't know was that while she was laughing into her phone in the bathroom, I was sitting in my tiny office, rewriting a voice recognition algorithm. The one a Nordic firm just valued at $112 million. She once called it a silly little side project. Now, it's the final move, in a marriage that has no way back. And Finn, I didn't forget him. I didn't know if he wanted money, or just liked the thrill of taking someone else's wife. But I knew where he worked. And that company, I'd turned down investing in it 4 years ago, because their leadership team was weak. I called Miles, an investor who held 12% of their shares. I want controlling interest. No negotiation. Wrap it up in 2 weeks. Miles, why that company? I gave a faint smile. Because the woman who betrayed me thinks she's getting promoted thanks to them. Over the next 2 weeks, Amber went on with life like I was invisible. One day, without even looking at me, she said, "Don't forget to pay the tuition. Mom says we shouldn't be late." I nodded, paid it in full. But I also quietly opened a private scholarship fund for our daughter, under my name, with full custody rights. I still slept in the same bed as Amber, but her back felt like a soundproof wall, separating two worlds that would never meet again. Sometimes she'd talk in her sleep, mumble a name, not mine. I'd turn to face the wall, not angry, not broken, just like I no longer had the right to hurt. On the final night before everything flipped, I wrote in my journal, "They think my silence means surrender. But truth is, I'm restoring order, and by tomorrow morning, they'll no longer be part of that order." That morning, Amber made coffee, just like always. Left hand stirring almond milk, right hand placing a brown envelope right beside my cup. I was pouring milk into our daughter's glass, but my eyes were on the envelope. I hadn't touched it yet, but I already knew what it was. Amber didn't say a word. She was wearing the same white shirt I once bought her, but now it smelled like Finn's cologne. When our daughter sat down at the table, Amber kissed her forehead and said, "From now on, you'll live with Mommy. Daddy's busy with moving, packing. He won't have time to take you to school anymore." Our daughter turned to me, wide-eyed, waiting for me to say something back. I swallowed hard. I wanted to say, "No one decides that but me." But instead, I just smiled, gently set down the milk carton, and said, "Be good at school, sweetheart. Daddy will see you real soon." After dropping her off, I opened the envelope. It was the divorce papers. Clean, polished, official. The final page outlined asset division, based on contribution, a civilized-sounding phrase. With sharp edges, Amber wanted to keep the house, the car, the savings account, and full custody, on the grounds that I was professionally unstable. I laughed, a soft laugh, so quiet that anyone nearby might have thought I was reading comics. But inside, a cold wave ran from my chest to my neck, not because she betrayed me again, but because the woman I once loved with everything I had was now treating me like a task to be wrapped up and filed away. I picked up my phone. One call. 3 words. Nothing else needed. "Activate Structure B." The voice on the other end replied, "Understood." 3 days later, Amber received an email from her company board. Staff restructuring. Marketing was being merged with sales. The new manager, handpicked long ago. No need for me to interfere. That evening, she came home with a strange look. Not angry, not scared, just confused, like the world no longer revolved around her. "Did you do this?" I looked at her, didn't blink. "No, you chose that position yourself. I just picked the right moment to stop standing beside you." Amber said nothing. No comeback, no questions. She just walked up the stairs, one step at a time, slow but heavy, like something inside her had just cracked. That night, I slept on the couch. Didn't sleep, actually. I thought of our daughter, thought of how tightly she squeezed my hand whenever she asked, Promise you'll still pick me up, right, Daddy? And I knew. The real fight hadn't even begun. Amber still had one more move, and she thought it'd be the final blow. She was wrong. 3 days later, Amber's lawyer emailed me. Subject line: request for asset revision and child custody. I opened the attachment. She wanted the house, the car, the savings, full custody, and 5 years of support. The email was written in clean, professional language, but every sentence felt like a slap in the face. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Morris with a note: activate Structure B, access custody evidence database, cross-check independent asset list, include ownership records. 2 days later, Amber came back to collect more of her things. I was at the table, silent. She didn't say anything until she noticed a file on the corner of the desk, a copyright certificate for the voice recognition software. She stopped, squinted. I thought, you gave up on this. I looked her in the eye. No, I just built it in silence, just like how you quietly pulled away from this marriage. She turned around, didn't respond, but I heard her sigh, a small sound, like for the first time in months, she wasn't so sure of herself anymore. At the pre-settlement hearing, her lawyer arrived early, well prepared. I showed up on time. No thick files, just one small suitcase, a few papers, and one USB. Amber spoke first, cold, composed. I've always been the more present parent. The house is for our daughter's stability, and legally, our assets are joint. I've invested years in unpaid domestic labor. My lawyer didn't interrupt, waited. Then I slid over my file. 3 parts: proof of parenting, time-stamped photos, short videos, medical appointments, school records, financials, investment portfolios, software copyrights, offshore company records, all under my name, dated before the marriage. A single sheet, the prenuptial agreement, signed in the state of Florida, where assets acquired before marriage are exempt from division. Amber snatched the last one, stared at the date. Her hand trembled. She looked at me, for the first time, off balance. You signed this before, so I get nothing. I didn't answer, just looked at her, not with anger, but with regret, not for the money, but for the woman who chose to walk away, believing she had control over everything. She left the room first. I stayed back, signed the documents. My lawyer leaned in and said quietly, "She didn't expect you to be this prepared." I nodded. She thought this was chess. But really, she walked into a maze she built for herself. That night, I sat with my daughter's drawings. One showed an adult holding a child's hand, standing under the rain. Underneath, in messy crayon letters, "I don't need a big house. I just need Dad." I closed my eyes, and for the first time in months, I exhaled, slow, steady, like I'd finally let go of something nameless. But then, my phone rang. Unknown number. On the other end, a woman's voice, shaky, breaking. "Cody, I'm sorry for waiting this long to call, but you need to know the truth." I held my breath for 2 seconds. That voice, not unfamiliar, not quite familiar, but something in it made my chest tighten, like something inside me knew a truth was about to break open. "I'm Mallory, from finance. We met at last year's shareholder meeting, when you gave up your speaking slot for Amber." "Right, Mallory. The quiet one. Cool face, always typing with 2 fingers. Amber once called her that polite finance girl." I tightened my grip on the phone, stepped out onto the balcony. "What are you calling me for, Mallory?" Her voice slowed, breath heavy. "It's about Amber and Finn. It wasn't about love." "Not entirely." I said nothing. "Finn works for a competitor. They planted him to extract internal data, to steal the audio algorithm you developed. Amber, at first, she thought she could control him, use him, trade favors inside the company, then walk away. But then, her voice cracked. It went further than she expected. He started threatening her, said he'd leak photos, texts, videos, unless she helped unlock your software's copyright. A chill ran through me. Not pain, but something deeper, like the ground beneath me had just shifted. "Did she give him anything yet?" I asked, voice low. "No. The day you sent the divorce documents. She spent hours in the ladies' room, crying. I overheard her whisper, 'He never betrayed me. So what the hell am I doing?' I leaned against the wall. For some reason, my eyes burned. Part of me wanted to rush home, grab her shoulders, and ask why. But the other part just wanted to disappear from her memory completely. Why are you telling me this, Mallory? Because I saw a man once, standing in a boardroom, stepping back so the woman beside him could shine, even though the idea was his. A man like that deserves to know the truth, even if it's late. Mallory hung up. I stood there for a long time. The streetlight cast a pale yellow glow onto the cracks in the wall. For the first time, I couldn't tell if I was angry, or heartbroken, or just lost. She didn't love Finn, and she stopped before it went too far. So, did I divorce a woman who never meant to truly betray me? Did I destroy our marriage because of a wound I never paused to check, to see if it was even a deliberate cut? My heart beat harder, but not from rage. Only one question echoed over and over. If she didn't love him, then who was I really fighting all this time? I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, lights off. Moonlight filtered through the half curtain, casting pale, trembling stripes across the wall. I had won, on paper, on the board, but after that call, all I could feel was that I'd torn down a house I built with my own hands because I thought the foundation was rotten. She didn't love Finn, so who had I been reacting to? The truth, or my fear of being hurt again? The next morning, I pulled up outside her office. It had been a long time since I last saw Amber step out from behind those glass doors, the same doors that once held both our dreams. She saw me, stopped. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was cold, but her eyes, they couldn't hide their caution. I didn't speak, just handed her a sheet of paper. It was Mallory's written statement. Simple, clean, disturbingly clear. Amber read slowly. Her hands shook. She blinked faster than usual. You knew." I nodded. No judgment, no accusations. I wanted to stop. I did, but I didn't believe you could forgive me after everything. So I let you go, before you could push me away. I turned to walk. I meant to leave, keep the last piece of pride I had left. But then I saw something, our daughter's bracelet, still wrapped around her wrist. The little pink plastic one, with shaky letters that read, "I love Mom and Dad." I froze. The morning wind hit my face, cold, and I remembered our daughter's voice. "Dad, are you mad at Mom?" I turned back, didn't step closer, just said quietly, "I used to think forgiveness was weakness, but now I think forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It just means you stop carrying a sword when you walk past each other." Amber cried, not loud, not broken, just 2 lines of tears running silently down the face I once knew by heart. "I won't promise to forget, but I want our daughter to grow up seeing 2 parents who didn't use hate as the last thing they taught each other." Amber nodded. Not a promise, just an acknowledgement that we were no longer on opposite sides. That afternoon, I picked up our daughter early. Amber waited across the street. Our little girl saw us both, squealed, ran toward us, grabbed my hand, then reached for her mother's. We didn't say a word, but her tiny hand linked ours together, and for the first time in months, I realized what made me a man wasn't how I won a marriage. It was how I walked away from it, with my heart still whole. Forgiveness is a decision, but living with it is a journey that takes a whole lot of courage. 3 days after meeting Amber, I got an email from Morris, my lawyer. Subject: case closed, divorce finalized. Just one line. Both parties agreed. No counters, no further claims. I read it in silence, like someone closing the last door in a house that used to be a home, now just dust. That night, Amber texted me, "Thank you for not turning this into a final war." I stared at those words for a long time, then deleted the reply I was typing, because some things don't need to be said anymore. A week later, I took my daughter for a haircut. Our usual place, a ritual from all the Saturdays without Mom. I lifted her onto the chair. "Princess, what style today?" She grinned and pointed at the same picture as always. "Moana." I smiled and nodded to the stylist. On our way out, the barber pulled me aside and asked gently, "Haven't seen her mom in a while. You two look so happy." I looked out the glass window, sunlight spilling onto the sidewalk, and replied slowly, "Now, we're just learning how to stand apart, but still try to face the same direction." It felt like things had finally settled, until one day, my daughter brought home a drawing. 3 people, me, her, and A man I didn't recognize. Brown hair? Glasses. Standing next to Amber. She pointed. Uncle Finn came to the park with me and Mommy. She says he's just a friend. But he looked at her like in the movies, Daddy. I froze. Not out of jealousy, but because I was never ready to see the woman I once loved fully step into a life where I no longer existed. That night, I walked around the neighborhood. It wasn't cold, but I pulled my collar up anyway. I passed the photo by the door. An old family picture from our daughter's 3rd birthday. Amber holding her, me with my arm around them both. The photo's faded now. Wooden frame chipped. But one thing's still clear. Amber's smile, the kind she no longer gave to me. I turned away, sat on the doorstep, looked up at a moonless sky, and asked myself, if one day she asks why we split, what will I say to keep her from hurting? The easy answers came first. Because your mom was wrong. Because I was betrayed. But then a quieter voice inside said, or maybe, your mom and I just didn't learn how to hold on when it mattered most. I sat there for a long time, and I realized, forgiving someone else is easier than forgiving yourself. I saw Finn again on a Friday afternoon. No plan, no setup, just, I picked my daughter up early that day, and there he was, standing next to Amber outside the school. My daughter ran to me first. Amber hesitated for a second. Finn slipped his hands into his pockets, met my eyes for a moment, uncertain. You're early, Amber said, a little surprised. I didn't respond, just looked at Finn. Can we talk? He nodded, though his hands clenched slightly. Amber opened her mouth, but I looked at her and shook my head. Her eyes, not scared, not angry, but like someone who owed you something, and knew this wasn't her moment. Finn and I stood beside my rental car, 10 steps from the school gate. No one spoke. Finally I said, I know everything about you and Amber, and how it started. He nodded. No excuses. No apology. I'm not here to ask if you love her. Love doesn't always come from the right places. But there's one thing I need you to understand. Not for Amber. For my daughter. I stepped closer, just enough that our eyes couldn't avoid each other. She's not a gap you fill, just because I stepped out. She's not a bond you build through shared moments with her mother. She's not a glitch you exploit. She's a system you don't get to hack. She's the border between my past and the future you're trying to enter. Das. He swallowed. Whispered, I understand. I'll keep my distance. I nodded, slowly. Good. Because if you don't, I won't use the law. I'll use memory, and it'll erase you from her life before she ever gets the chance to call you anything decent. Heintia. Not a threat, not a growl, just clarity from a father who's walked through pain and kept his heart intact for his child. When I returned, Amber was still standing there. She didn't step forward, just watched, her eyes full of quiet gratitude, but she stayed out of it, like she finally understood. I wasn't fighting her anymore. I was protecting what mattered. That night, I sat with my daughter, doing puzzles. One piece didn't fit. I kept rotating it, trying again and again. She looked up and said, Flip it, Dad. It only fits if you turn it the other way. I paused, then smiled. Yeah, some things only fit when you're willing to see them differently. I pulled her close, and I finally understood. I wasn't just a man who'd walked out of a broken marriage. I was a man who learned not to pass on his wounds to an innocent child. Some people hold on to pain to remember. I hold on to her, so I never repeat that pain again. If someone asked me, what was the most painful day of your marriage? I wouldn't say it was the day I found out she cheated, or the day I signed the divorce papers. It was the day I sat quietly, watching my daughter fall asleep on her mother's shoulder, and realized, from now on, I would no longer be the one standing next to Amber. When our daughter said the words, Mom and Dad, I used to think every breakup had a winner. But after everything, I understand, no one wins, only those who move forward, without turning into someone cruel. Amber and I didn't get back together. We didn't cry in each other's arms, or post smiling pictures with captions like still good friends. We just chose to stand on the same side for our daughter, even if we no longer stood next to each other. One afternoon, the three of us went out for pizza. Our daughter broke the last slice in half, smiled, and said, This is a 3-son day. I asked her what that meant. She replied, Because I have 2 sons. mom and dad. And me, I'm the baby son. I didn't correct her. Because I knew, to a child, love doesn't need logic. It just needs enough space. For three people in the same picture, even if they're no longer touching. A friend once asked me, "Do you still love her?" I stayed quiet. Love, to me back then, meant holding on, fighting, refusing to let go. Now, love means knowing when to let go, and letting go with grace. A real man isn't the one who never hurts. He's the one who carries the pain himself. So his child never has to. I used to think forgiveness was for the other person, to let them sleep better at night. But really, forgiveness is for yourself, so you can breathe a little easier. It's when you can look at an old photo without turning away, when you pass the bakery where you used to wait for her, without that lump in your throat, when your child talks about Mom and Uncle Finn, and you don't feel replaced. You just feel relieved that your child is still surrounded by love. That night, my daughter asked, "Daddy, do you cry?" I brushed her hair and answered, "Yes, but I cry on the inside, so the tears don't ever touch your heart." She squeezed my hand, tiny, warm, and I didn't need to say another word. I still live alone. Every morning I make myself a cup of coffee, sit by the window, and watch the sunlight pour through the curtain. No one sits across from me anymore, but I don't feel empty, because I once loved, truly. I once lost, completely, and I once forgave when it mattered most. I took out the old photo from my desk drawer, the three of us at the beach, back when our daughter was 3. I looked at it for a long time, then slowly folded it in half and placed it back in the drawer, not to forget, but to keep it in the right place. Some people hold on to pain to remember. I hold on to my daughter, so I never repeat that pain again. My name is Cody Palmer, and this is my journey of learning to let go without giving up, of learning to forgive without forgetting.